Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's technique video, I'll be showing you how to combine contact paper with the very fun ink lifting technique. I'll be using these Waffle Flower products today. First up is the Bouquet Builder combo set. I'll be using the Bouquet Builder stamp set as well as the Bouquet Builder matching die. I'll also use the Rainbow stamp set. I'll be using that for our sentiments. And we'll add a stitch detail using the A2 Nesting Rectangle 1 die. I'm going to start with a panel of Bristol paper. I'm using Canson brand Bristol paper. It is cut to an A2 size panel, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to use the largest die from the A2 Nesting Rectangles 1 die set to just die cut this panel, mainly just to add a little stitched border around the edge of the panel. So I just centered it in the die and then used some purple tape to hold it in place and then ran it through my die cutting machine. I'll remove the purple tape here and then you will see the beautiful stitched detail that the die set adds to the panel. I've gone ahead and made a second stitched panel with Bristol paper. Now I have a 6x6 piece of contact paper. When you purchase contact paper, it comes in a roll. I'll grab it here so you can see. Contact paper has lots of different patterns. I chose a grid-like pattern to help me to center and position things. You can even get clear. You can order contact paper through Amazon as well. I actually purchased this at my 99-cent store, so the whole roll was only $1. I really like to use contact paper for masks or stencils because it's a very cheap medium and you can use your dies with it, so it's really great. So now I've taken several dies from the Bouquet Builder stamp set or Bouquet Builder die set, and I just positioned them here on that 6x6 piece of contact paper and then ran it through my die cutting machine. As you can see, the dies cut the contact paper beautifully. Now the contact paper does have a it's basically like a plastic sheet and then it has a backing to protect the adhesive. So it cuts through both those layers, the plastic contact paper and the adhesive backing, beautifully. And now I'm just positioning some more of those dies, and I am removing and keeping the die cuts as well as that 6x6 piece of contact paper. And again, positioning the dies and running through my die cutting machine. I'm going to use both of the die cuts and that 6x6, almost like a stencil of contact paper. And if you've never heard of contact paper before, it's the sheets that people use to cover their drawers or their shelves to protect the surface. So now I have my Bristol panel here and I'm going to do some ink blending on the surface of this panel. I have chosen 3 Distress Oxides. They are Peacock Feathers, Salty Ocean, and Wilted Violet. And I'm just going to blend areas with each one of those 3 colors. I'll do the whole panel first with doing each whatever, kind of random sections with the color that I chose, and then I'll go over the whole panel again with the same 3 colors in those same sections just to darken and bolden. You can see here in my left hand I'm using one of the mini ink blending tools just to kind of hold the panel in place so I don't touch it with my fingers. As I touch the panel, with my fingers I'll pull up some of that Distress Oxide, so I'm just using that blender to kind of hold it in place while I blend. And the reason why we're using Bristol paper is because Bristol paper can hold up to the water that we're going to introduce to this, and also I found that the ink doesn't absorb deeply into the Bristol paper, so you get more color lifting, more ink lifting when you use Bristol paper. So now I'm removing the backing on these contact paper die cuts and I'm just going to place them on this panel here. I've jumped ahead so you can see the whole panel's I've used pretty much all the die cuts and I'm almost done there. Now I'm going to take a Cricut tool. You could use like a palette knife or something if you have something like that instead, and I'm just smushing those that contact paper down and really getting it a nice seal onto the panel. And that one in the lower corner is giving me a little bit of trouble, but I was able to flip it around and use that die cut as well. So now for this panel, I'm going to remove the backing on this sheet of contact paper and place it right on top, kind of like you would use a stencil. Place it right over and it sticks beautifully. And then I will also grab that Cricut tool to just kind of push that contact paper down and make sure I really got a good seal onto the A2 panel. Okay, so with the contact paper on both my panels, I'm ready for the fun part. So I have my chamois here made from an absorber cloth. I have it dampened, but wrung it out really well so it's not dripping with water. And now I'm just tapping or pushing the surface of the chamois over those open areas, those exposed areas of the panel, and this is picking up that distress oxide and lightening those exposed areas. And it's very easy to do. I do sometimes rotate the absorber cloth in my hand so I have a clean area and pick up some more ink. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this panel where we use the die cuts instead of the sheet of contact paper. An exact same thing, taking my absorber cloth, going over the surface and picking up that distress ink wherever the ink is exposed. And you can see on this panel the kind of the texture that chamois leaves behind. It leaves a little bit of texture. We are pulling a lot of ink because we're not as focused on the texture, but you still get a little bit of texture left behind on that background. Now I'm going to remove the contact paper, and you can see how the contact paper protected wherever the contact paper was. The ink is still dark because it protected it from the dampened chamois, so that part did not get any color lifting or any ink lifting. And then now I'll remove all the contact paper die cuts, and you'll see the same kind of concept. Wherever the die cut was or the contact paper was, the ink was protected, and everywhere around where it was exposed, it's lighter because I was able to lift that color up with the absorber. So really cool. A little bit different look. They do have a sort of similar look. I think I actually prefer the card on the right. I think it has a little bit more depth, but still really fun because you can kind of get more bang for your buck by using the sheet of contact paper and the die cuts as well to make kind of two cards. So you see, I'm just pointing out to you how it's lighter where it was exposed and darker where it was covered with the contact paper. So now we're going to move on to doing a little bit of white heat embossing. I've pulled the stamps now from the Bouquet Builder stamp set, and I just arranged them here on this panel, and I'm going to do this in sections. I did put some anti-static powder down. Now I'm using Versamark ink, and I'm going to fold my MISTI over here and stamp those flowers and leaves. These are actually the same coordinating or matching stamp sets to the dies that I used before. And I'm just going to tap off the excess white embossing powder and then heat set that with my heat gun. And like I said earlier, I'm going to do this in stages or in parts because I'm going to cover this whole panel with these white embossed images. So I'm just doing it section by section here. I find it's easier for me to stamp than do the embossing powder and heat set it and then stamp to the next section than trying doing it the whole panel at once. I would for sure mess it up if I tried to do the whole panel at once. So I would just find that that's easier for me to do it in sections. So I'm just about done here finishing up that last. I have a little corner there that I'm going to do a little bit more to. There you see I'm finishing up that tiny bit. I had like 2 more stamps to do, and now I've heat set it, and this A2 panel is completely done. So lots of depth there. I think it has a really fun look with that white embossing on top. Now I've jumped ahead and done the exact same thing to the other panel, and I didn't mention the inks I used for that panel. That panel I ink blended Wild Honey Spice Marmalade and Picked Raspberry, and I did the exact same white heat embossing to it as well. So now I've already stamped and heat embossed a sentiment from the Rainbow stamp set onto some black cardstock and put some foam tape behind it, and now I'm just adhering it onto my panel. And I've also already adhered my panels onto my A2 top folding card bases as well. And that finishes up the card. So here's the one where we use the sheet of contact paper. So we color lifted all the die cut negatives of the flowers. So those are all lighter and the background's darker. For this one, we use the contact paper die cuts. So all the flowers are darker now and the background is lighter. I think this one is my favorite because you have a little bit more texture. You see more of the texture from the absorber cloth, which I like it. I think that adds more depth to the background panel. And now I'm going to grab one more card that I created. This one I did the same thing. I just did my heat embossing only at like one corner. So I left one side open. So just a different way to kind of stamp if you want to do some heat embossing. I hope you guys enjoyed today's technique. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching.